No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hello, friends, and happy Wednesday. That's right, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for another incredible conversation with an artist / entertainer. This week we've got Christopher James on the show, and it was a really good conversation. I had such a blast talking with him. It's so interesting that, in this business, you tend to know of people before you know them. And I found that just getting to know people is so much better. And so when Christopher reached out and said he was coming to LA, I said, let's talk. Let's do a podcast. So we met at the fabulous Nirvana Hotel across the street from the castle where he was performing, and just had a great time. So I'm excited to share it. This is episode 99, which means next week is episode 100. I can't believe it. It's crazy to think of. When just you say every week I'm going to talk with an artist and entertainer, and then 100 of those flies by. So next week, look forward to it. It's going to be like a best of episode. We're getting a lot of people sending in thoughts of their favorite moments from the show. And so if you have a favorite thought or moment from the show, something that stood out to you, either a funny moment or something that encouraged you or challenged you, drop us a line. Go to the website, abouttobreakpodcast.com. Send us a little message. Let us know what you enjoy. What was one of your favorite episodes? Maybe your moment will be captured here on the show. This week I'm in Lake Tahoe with the family. We're up here. I'm performing at the Loft with my buddy Eric Buss. He is headlining, and I'm just opening the show and having a little fun with him. Kind of a busy time for us right now. I drive home on Friday. We'll drive home with the family, and then Saturday go to Colorado for a show, and then straight from Colorado to Detroit right after that. So busy times, but good times. And if I could encourage you with anything going into this episode, take care of yourself. Whenever I get into one of these busy seasons, I'm reminded of a time recently when I didn't do such a good job taking care of myself, both with diet and exercise and meditation. And I'm telling you, those things, whenever I neglect those areas, life doesn't go as well. So my challenge to you today is whatever you're going into season-wise, whether it's a busy season, you got to take care of yourself. And especially if it's a not busy season as an artist, those can be some of the toughest times. So I'd encourage you to do something for yourself. Even if it's just get out there and take a walk and enjoy your surroundings and just remind yourself that you're part of something bigger. I don't know why I'm sharing all this other than it's been encouraging to me. So I hope that's encouraging to you. And I know that you're going to enjoy this episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 99 of the podcast, my conversation with Christopher James. Hey, everybody. Welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor Hughes. And right now I'm sitting in the fabulous Nirvana Hotel in Hollywood, California, with Mr. Christopher James. Christopher,
well, hello
thank you for doing this, man.
This is so much fun.
I'm so glad we're sitting down to talk.
Yeah, I listen to you all the time. I love your podcast, so it's great.
I always wondered who it was, the one person that was listening to this.
Well, that's me. I listen on double speed so I can get it over with. Oh, that's
good. So, yeah. Well, it's, I was talking to a friend this morning. He's like, man, your podcasts are kind of long. And I'm like, yeah, well, speed it up,
Yeah. No, I love it. I've learned so much from your podcast. So
thank you, man. It's fun because you have a very successful podcast that you're like over 200 episodes now.
Yeah. In Branson.
In Branson, Missouri. And when I was there a couple months ago, we were trying to figure out a time to get our show schedules to line up so that we could record.
Right.
It just didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. You got to visit the lovely Branson, Missouri. What were you there, like a week?
I was there for 1 week.
1 week? And what did you think? Did you like it?
I like Branson.
It's a little different, isn't it?
It is. I was at Silver Dollar City.
Mm-hmm. They have like the Grand Exposition. It's supposed to be like you're in 1885.
Yeah.
Go walk around. And
Well, I found out the day I left that there is like caverns, like under the whole park. That I guess that's part of how they started.
Well, that's how it got started. To tell you the truth, is they rented a cave, and they would have square dancing inside the cave, and they started getting so many people showing up for the cave that they went ahead and they started having entertainment for the people waiting in line to go down to the cave, and then they added food, then they added rides, and it got crazy. Just
that's
crazy.
So crazy. Yeah, you got to keep people entertained trained while they're waiting in line to go in a cave.
Right. And now it's huge.
Oh, it's massive.
Millions. I think they had 3 million visitors this year. Thanks to you being there.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, you've been in Branson now, what, 15 years?
Going on 15 years, starting my 15th season. So
now, how did you first get to Branson? I mean, maybe we back up. Maybe that's a little too soon to jump to Branson. Like, what was your first start into this silliness of entertainment?
Into the silliness was actually I owned a party supply store.
Okay.
And we had a whole chain of stores, and one of them was located inside of a mall.
Okay.
And there was a guy that had a magic stand. And so when times were slow, I'd go over and hang out with him and watch the magic. And I had done magic before that.
Yeah.
My grandparents had taught me some tricks. And so there I am watching him. He decided to go out of business, and I'm like, hey, I'll take it over.
Yeah.
And so I ran his magic shop for a while.
Okay.
And just started
those
performing.
Like sponge balls, Svengali decks?
Yeah, it was like the tourist stuff.
Yep.
And we didn't have it a long time, because if you ever work in a mall or an amusement area, you become a babysitter. That's what we did.
Oh, you're doing a lot of free shows for kids while their parents don't buy things? Or?
Right. But it ended up being a lot of bookings, and I ended up in Branson through a weird set of circumstances.
Okay.
I got a job working at the mall. I was there, and a guy saw me, asked me to do close-up restaurant magic.
Okay.
So I went to his restaurant and would perform. It was an amazing restaurant, World War II themed, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Like the walls were all sandbags, and it was like you were in an old French cafe. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And so I was doing that. We had a tornado come through. Everybody had to go to the basement, right, of this place. And there happened to be a guy from the Catskills there.
Okay.
And he's like, hey, I loved your performance. Would you come and do a week in the Catskills? I go to the Catskills. I work there a week. Somebody from Branson is vacationing in the Catskills. They hire me to come to Branson for just a couple months to fill in for somebody. And boom, been there 15 years.
That's wild. Did you ever think Branson would be home when you first went? What was that first run like? When
never thought it was going to be home. I had never heard of Branson, Missouri before I moved there. And it's really funny because the guy I was replacing in the Catskills, they had me come in because he kept taking time off to go do other venues. And stuff. And they're like, come on, And so I went and did his week, and they said, we're going to replace him. Do you want the job? So I ended up working there a year.
Wow.
And then when I got the offer to Branson, they said, hey, we have this guy. He keeps taking time off. Do you want to come and fill in for him? Came and filled in. And then they're like, hey, you want to stay here? And it was the same guy. And I felt
it was the same guy.
I felt really bad for him.
Oh, that's awful.
I felt really bad. But I had never heard of Branson. In fact, I didn't even know where it was. Yeah. Like I was so bad with American geometry or geography.
Geography. Because both are involved to get there.
Yeah. And I had told some friends in Vegas, hey, when I have the weekend off, I'll drive over and visit. And I had no idea
how far it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first week, I show up in Branson. I go to the Walmart. Okay. I tell this story in the show.
Yeah.
And everybody was coming up to me and they're going, so how you doing? How's your weekend? And I'm like, why are these people all coming up to talk to me? I'm moving there from New York,
Right.
I'm on the phone with my friend. I said, everybody wants to know how my day is. How's it going? And my friend goes, what do they want? And I said, I don't think they want anything. Right. I think they want how
they're just curious about how my day is
and
going.
He goes, they want something.
Yeah.
And don't trust them.
Right. That's a very New York attitude, right?
Mm-hmm. And so I told him how it was there. Really clean. I mean, it's super clean in Branson. And he's like, I give you a week. You'll be there 1 week before they run you out of town. But 15 years.
Wow, man. Wow, man. And you got the family?
Yeah. I have twins.
What are their ages?
They're the same age.
Oh, good.
Yeah. That's how they were.
Such an idiot.
Terrible for my wife.
Right. They're 3 years apart. My wife is miserable about it. It was awful.
It was awful.
What is the age of these?
They're 6 years old.
Okay.
And they're actually in my show.
Oh, wow.
They were on stage last year when they were in kindergarten. We get them out of school. They'd come in. But now we do it looks like a live video with them. And they do mentalism in the show.
Really?
And it's really freaky. My daughter has a knack for learning secret codes, let's say.
Okay.
And she is just amazing at it.
That's got to be really impressive to see a 6-year-old pulling that off.
And my son is learning the rope trick that you saw at the Magic Castle.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, we do a phase every week, and it's incredible.
Isn't it weird that our kids, this is like normal for them?
It is.
I think about it all the time, that this is going to be like they're gonna be like, oh, you guys didn't do that kind of stuff when you were kids?
Yeah, that's exactly what they do. They were in kindergarten in my show, and so we had promo pics that we'd hand out after the show of the kids. And when they started first grade, they went to school, and I didn't know they had taken some of them to school, and they didn't understand why the other kids didn't have headshots to exchange.
Oh, that's hilarious.
When they got there. So.
They're like baseball cards for the entertainment business.
Yeah. And so they found it really weird.
That's fantastic.
Really weird. So, but yeah, they're going to be great. They have their own TV show in Branson.
Really?
I don't know if you saw it when they were there.
I didn't see it. No.
Kids Connection.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, 3 years they've been doing that.
That's cool. They're 6 years old and they've been doing their own TV show for 3 years.
For 3 years, what we do is we do these things called the Explorers Club.
Yeah.
And so we go do all kind of events. We brought them out to the Magic Castle.
Cool.
And we did an episode about it, but they go, they experience it. And then we do short little 5-minute segment where they describe it. They do the voiceover to the video. And the first year, I think it was, I would be there and kind of coach them. Hey, remember this? Remember this? And then we'd edit it together. And the second year, we're filming, and we have a film guy, we had a sound guy there, and the kids go, Dad, we don't need you for this part. Let us do it all by ourselves.
We got this.
Yeah. And I'm like, you're 4 years old. Like,
that's crazy.
And the producer said, go ahead, get off camera there. So I stepped off, and they did the full episode all by themselves. And it is hysterical because they have little running gags between them, and they make fun of each other. And I'm the smarter one. Well, I'm the prettier one. Like that sort of thing. And it is hilarious.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I was so impressed when I first heard about you and started, doing what we do online. We can now find out a lot about people just on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm amazed to see. I mean, I know what it's like when you're working a place like Branson. I mean, you're doing how many shows a day?
We do 2 to 3 shows a day. So we usually do about 12 shows a week.
Yeah, so 12 shows a week. And then when in the off season, you do cruises, you do corporates, like you do all these other shows. But then you have a YouTube channel, and you've got podcasts, and you've got. I'm just amazed at like, what is your? My wife is probably laughing that I'm going to ask you this, because what is your schedule like? Like,
what is my schedule?
Like, do you ever have downtime where you're not doing?
No. Because everything we do, we all have our own GoPros. We carry them with us in our backpacks and stuff, just in case something comes up that we can use. So we take advantage when we're out. We will just film things. The kids will say, hey, I'm going to film this because this could be funny. Yeah. And we have a GoPro mounted in our car. We have episodes where we're riding around.
What?
Yeah. And so we'll just come up with an idea in traffic and just do it in the car, like a little segment and stuff. So we film all the time. In fact, it got so out of control. 2 years ago, when I was working on a cruise ship, my wife renovated under our house and built me a sound studio in there that is also our video studio now. So we mounted cameras and lights, and it's really cool because we can just pivot them, and we have 4 sets around the room. We have a green screen. We have an interview area. And so we can film at home. So lots of times I get home at 11 o'clock at night and go down and film intros and outros for the show. And so it's pretty crazy.
Nonstop, man.
It is crazy. Our producers joke that I can't handle a day off.
Yeah. Now talk about that. Can you really, like, what does a day look like when there's got to be a rare day when there's nothing on the calendar. You don't.
I hope one day to have
really.
No, truly, we're always recording. Even here for the Magic Castle, I brought my camera rig, and I've been filming like a little travel log of what it's like to work at the Magic Castle.
Oh my gosh!
And here at the beautiful Nirvana, we've been recording that, but it's just something I enjoy. It's a lot of fun. You know how it is. Like, it's just, I enjoy it. It's a great way. I never talk to anybody unless we have a microphone.
That's crazy. I mean, that's cool, but it's also like, to people listening, that's such a different way to do things,
I guess.
It's just,
But see, I figured out how to maximize it. When I do my show, you didn't make it over to the show.
I didn't get to see the show. I saw a video of it, but I didn't get to see
the show in Branson.
Yes. No, not yet.
That is a whole different experience because I host a pre-show, which we do as a game show. Okay. Nice. So I do like a half-hour game show. Yep. Let the people eat. Yep. Then we let them have a little break. Then I host our variety show, and my show has singers and dancers and a band. And so I do a 20-minute feature in that. So what we started doing was recording the game show and then using segments of that on the TV show. Oh, wow. And then we use the audio for some of the podcast and news that we have. So I have figured out how to take one experience and use it for three projects. So
that's very cool.
It's just maximizing time, you know?
See, this is good. I similarly, but I will take days off. But I struggle on those days off.
Because you want to work?
Yeah, I have a hard time, and my wife knows this. This is a struggle for me. Like, I have a hard time shutting my brain down,
right,
and being able to just switch off the creative process and just be. I focus really hard on just being present with what's going on and not having my mind race.
Yeah,
and I've gotten better at it, but it's interesting to hear someone else who's just like, yeah, I come home and at 11 o'clock, I go to the studio and work.
Well, isn't that hard? I mean, my show is very energetic, right? Yeah. And I'm all over the place. So it's hard. The show ends about 10:30.
I got you, man.
Go home at 11. Yep. Like, I can't just go to bed. Like, I'm eating dinner at 11:30.
Right.
I stay up till about 2. We usually I never watch TV during the day.
Yeah.
And so my wife, this drives her crazy. If we have a television on at night, she'll look over and I have something else playing on the iPad, and I'll have my headphone in one ear listening to a podcast in the other ear.
Really?
Yeah. It drives her nuts.
Is that because you're working all day and this is your time to catch up on other things, or?
Yeah, I'm researching things. I'm I don't know, just checking out lectures, that sort of stuff. Yeah. But I feel like just watching a TV show is a waste of time. Like, I need to learn something. Well, that's what I said. If you're a podcast, I listen to it and the variety podcasts and others when I'm jogging or anything. I'm doing at least one podcast. So,
dude, my mind is blown right now.
Yeah.
How do you, what is it? Well, you have days off, right? Or no, on the days off you work.
No, for 14 years. I had a day off in 2002.
Yeah. So when you were running the party business, was this still the same speed at which you would work?
Oh, yeah, it was worse.
Really?
It was worse because with that, you have employees, and our party business got out of control.
Okay.
I started it as a class project. Okay. I was going to college and they said, make a theoretical business and we're going to throw some problems out to you. Because I was going to school for IO psychology, how to handle groups of people.
Okay.
And after a few weeks, I'm like, we could do this. We could run this business out of my apartment. And so we started it.
The hypothetical business.
Yeah. And we faked it. And I used every trick you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
So what we did is we were selling paper supplies, right? So people would call us.
Like Dunder Mifflin.
Exactly. Yeah, okay. Exactly. And so I'm living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And so I just started pitching it and making these business cards like we were this huge company. So we got a call one day from like American Standard making these bathtubs and stuff. And they said, well, how much is toilet paper? I'm like, let me put you down for a second. And so I set it down, and I actually had a mini cassette recorder that just had office noise that I had recorded when I was out.
Yeah.
And I would play that so it sounded like other phones ringing, stuff going on in the background. And I would just sit there a minute, and I would pull up a chart that I had written from going to Costco.
Yeah.
And I would say, hey, well, toilet paper is this much. All right, we need 20 cases. I would drive to Costco and pick them up like 3 at a time and deliver them in my car.
What?
Yeah. And it eventually got bigger and bigger. And these people are like, oh, you're doing great. We love your prices. All we were doing is marking it up 10%. We were losing money because of the gas and everything.
And all that.
But it started growing. Then I got my first school system that wanted us to supply everything. And I'm like, what the heck am I going to do? So we rented a U-Haul, went to Sam's Club and Costco. And eventually, the manager there said, you're taking all of our inventory constantly. And our apartment was so full. It was crazy. So he put me in touch with their supplier. They gave us a little discount. It grew and grew and grew. And by the time we were done 10 years later, we were supplying like every major business with all of that.
Just stuff you bought at Costco.
Yeah. And it all started with $500.
Yeah.
And it was, I sold a car for $500. We used the money and just kept expanding.
Start a business.
Mm-hmm. And from that, got into the party supply, like the plates and stuff.
Right.
And then people said, well, do you know any entertainers? I'm like, well, I can do magic. I can do this at your party. And pretty soon I was doing that full time. So we ended up with location all over. So I was working 7 days a week. It was insane.
That's nuts.
Mm-hmm. And eventually what happened was so many employees would call off. I would have to cancel a show to cover them. And I'm like, this isn't right. So I just started performing full time.
So you make the move to perform full time.
Yeah.
And this is before you go to Branson. So
right.
Before you get to Branson, you're already performing full time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what type of stuff were you doing? Were you just doing every kind of show?
Any show I could do. Really? Any possible show. I worked at a prison. Okay. Several times because I was from Ohio, Pennsylvania, and there were a lot of prisons there. I was doing prisons in the evening, churches during the day. I was doing the restaurant. Okay. Eventually started doing the restaurant. Yeah. At one point I was doing 5 different restaurants a week, 5 nights a week. It was insane. I was working so much. And that's what a lot of people don't know. So like a lot of people have never heard of me outside of Branson because I work there all the time. And I don't get to travel like here to the Magic Castle. But then when I come here and they announce he does 500 shows a year, people are like, what? That's impossible. Right. But you just stay busy and you get that experience. And that's how I can handle like every crowd.
I was watching the video from your set this week, and I was your timing is so good, and it's timing you only get from doing that many shows, right? From doing 3, 4, 5, 12 shows a week.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things that, again, that my wife knows, but like I'll go on the road and I'll do a lot of one-nighters, a lot of corporate stuff. And then I come home and if I go too long without running to a comedy club or to, a variety show to do a spot, you get rusty. Right. I mean, you probably don't know this because you've never taken a day off, but there's something about the repetition of doing the same routine over and over that it just becomes this new thing.
Yeah. When I moved to Branson, we had an entertainer there that was really popular. He had been there 10 years at that point. Okay. At our venue. And he said, and he said to me, you're going to do a lot of shows. He said, so choose wisely what you want to put in the act. All right. Because they don't like it when you change a lot. Right. And he said, choose wisely because whatever you do, you're going to do 400 times a year. And even if you hate it, you're going to get good at it. You're going to get really good at it. Right. And that's true. So the other hard part is with my venue, they want a new act like twice a year. So I do, and every year. So every year for 15 years, I've had to redo the whole act.
New act twice a year. And how much time? So in that variety show, how much time? Because you're hosting as well, right?
Right.
So combined with all the different spots, how much time would you be doing in that show?
About 40 minutes, more than that, I guess, with a game show now. So 50, 50 minutes throughout the whole thing. Then I also have to think of a way to thread through the whole show. I do jokes through the whole show.
So you're talking about like an hour's worth of material twice a year. Right. Coming up with a new hour.
Because they want the full season show and then we have the holiday show. Yeah. So they want something a little different and they love it if I change everything every year.
Most magicians don't do that, right?
I know.
Well, even this week at the castle, you're doing, it's a shorter week because we had Founders Day and we had the holiday. So you're doing different stuff most nights, right?
Yeah, I brought 10 routines and I'm doing 4 per show.
People don't do that.
See, I think that's normal.
That's amazing. I've said this for years with magicians. I think one of the reasons magicians don't gain followings like comedians or singers is they don't come up with new material. Yeah. So someone may come and see your show and go, that was great, but they're not going to come back to see the same, because
do you think that?
I do think it's to some extent. I mean, it depends. There's certain acts that you go like, oh, I want to see them do that thing. Yeah. But magic is based on surprise.
I think the same thing. I mean, a few years ago, I was doing a lot of corporate work in Cleveland, and I would do holiday shows. And after the third year at the same company, I said, I want to redo the whole show.
Right.
Do the all new.
Yeah.
I showed up, did it. They said, we loved it, but you didn't do the trick with the lemon. You didn't do the trick with the banana.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I thought you wanted new stuff. Well, we hired you because we loved that stuff. We love the new stuff. And so my producer says people want to be surprised by the familiar. They want to feel like, they want to be comfortable with what they're seeing, but they want you to have a new twist on it.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. I like to do new things. And the act that I'm doing here comes from starting out this year with a real simple rope routine and then just keep adding things and adding things as things happen in the show. And it evolved into what's here right now.
I was watching it, and it surprised me how quick the time went. Mm-hmm. At the end of the show, I was like, oh, wow, that's the end of the show. But it also, I just loved, and we talked about the one routine that you're doing. I don't want to give away anything you don't want to give away, but I love that there's these little moments you don't even acknowledge, but that are magical. Right. That the audience, they pick it up at different points. And I'm sure that there's some people that leave the theater without even realizing some of the things happen. Yeah. But for the people that do, it's like, what in the world did I just see? Because it's stuff that happens in between the quote unquote tricks. Yeah.
Yeah. And I never draw attention to the fact that it's a trick. Right. Like I'm just going along, and we can tell them, like I end up, I go out on stage with nothing. Right. And I even say that at the top of my act. I say, I don't do the big illusions. I'm too lazy to move the furniture around. Right. And I don't want to haul all of that. If I can't carry it, I don't perform it. And so I go out and I just have on a jacket, a little table, nothing on it. And by the end, the table is full of props, and I've produced tons, and like literally hundreds of pounds of stuff. Right. And they have no idea where it comes from, but I never, ever bring it up. I just keep looking for something in my pocket, pull out something else, pull out this, pull out a live animal, pull out whatever. And you end up producing so much stuff. Now, I used to do the opposite. My act the first year was that I would walk on stage with a big box of all the typical magic props, linking rings, and you'd see all this stuff. And I'd be walking across the stage, look at the audience, drop it all just on the floor, step up, do my routine, never touch any of that stuff. Yeah. And then just go back, pick it up, and continue across the stage. Like I had just stopped on the way across the stage. Yeah. And done that. But one of our favorite things to do when we take time off, I guess,
the air quotes.
Not really time off,
right?
Yeah, is my son and I, we go and walk around Lowe's and Home Depot, and we look at weird things and try to figure out how to work it into the show. And that's how a lot of this act that you saw came. We're like, look how those are laying together. We could do that. Yeah. And so that's one of our favorite things to do.
I tell people, most of magic is arts and crafts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is.
A lot of it is going, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. How can I do it? They know me at Michael's.
Yeah.
Very, very well. Right. But that's typically it. It's just walking around a toy store, or just seeing something non-magical and trying to turn it into something.
So you had done the party business, and then you started doing magic. What made you stick with magic? I mean, there were other
money, man.
That's the best answer to that question I've ever heard. Talk about that. That's amazing.
Man, when I was younger, I said I want to make a ridiculous amount of money, and I should have been a lot more specific.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It was just fun. It was. I don't know. I got to be creative. I went to school for psychology. Yeah. All right. Originally, it was engineering. So I had 2 years of engineering. Okay. And I didn't like that. And so I switched over to psychology. And this was just a great way to kind of blend the two things, to tell you the truth. And I just had this weird knack for paying attention to detail. Okay. And so this happened the other night, not in the show you saw, but just walking around the castle. I could overhear people talking. I'm just walking around by myself. I'm not eavesdropping, but you know how it is. You're just walking around. There's people everywhere. Right. And then during my act 2 nights ago, as I'm doing the show, I start off and I'm just talking to people in the audience, and I said, well, you look comfortable. I hear you look like your hands, the way you're holding, you look like a juggler. Like, you look like, and the girl freaked out. She's like, how can you count? She's like looking at her hands. And I just heard her mentioning that. And I heard this other guy, and you look like, you just celebrated a big occasion. Wait, no, you're getting ready for a big occasion. Did you just get engaged? And it was just like a cold reading type thing.
Yeah.
But it was just a weird thing because I remember everything. It drives my wife crazy.
Really?
But yeah.
Will you remember it for like years to come?
Yeah. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with Aspergers. Okay. And so it's just a thing. Like I just remember for better or worse. And people think it's like a great thing to be able to do. Yeah. But you remember all the bad things too, So... But it helps in the show because it makes it look like I'm doing miracles, and all it's doing is
just having a good memory.
Yeah. I just remember things. And doing so many shows in Branson. Our game show, I typically have 6 to 8 contestants. And it starts off typical. What do you do for a living? Blah, blah, blah. And so I have done it so much, 6 to 8, 12 shows a week. Right. All right. So that's almost 100 people a week. Right. Is my math right? I hope. But roughly.
Close. Yeah.
Roughly. And you do that all year long for 15 years. Yeah. And so now when I get somebody up, I can say, you look like somebody that used to be in front of a crowd. So you have a knack for that cold reading. Yeah. And I get people all the time asking me to teach them. I'm like, I can't teach you. Right. Like, it's just so much experience.
Right. It's like improv. It's like trying to teach someone improv. I mean, you can teach them basics, but it's the repetitions of just doing it over and over. Yeah.
Right. And what I hate is seeing people that buy a commercial effect. Yeah. And they just do it straight out of the box. It drives me crazy to see that. And so I do have some commercial stuff I do in my act, but it's all the gimmick. I'll look at the gimmick. I study that. I never watch the performances until after I figure out how I can use it.
That's really good.
Based upon experience and stuff. So some people will see something in my show and they're like, I never thought of using it that way. Yeah. And it's gone so well with that. And I've learned so much just from all the experience that now in the show, I would just wheel out a table and it has a ton of different props and stuff on it. And I let the audience members pick 1 or 2 things off the rack. And I just come up with a routine with those 2 things on the fly on stage. So that's my act pretty much now. So
that's what you do now. That's your
pretty much,
act.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that I just wheel out my table with all the stuff on it and they can pick whatever. I let 2 different people pick them out, and based upon their professions, I try to come up with a routine. And it truly is improv magic.
That probably keeps it interesting for you doing so many shows a year.
Yeah. Otherwise I go crazy.
Well, here's a question I have is you do ships as well, right? Mm-hmm. So the ship schedule is so much different than a Branson schedule.
Right.
I mean, you're not doing 12, you're probably doing what, 2
nights a week.
Yeah, 2 nights, maybe 3 shows a week.
Right.
What are you doing with the rest of your time when you're stuck on a boat?
Oh, I am
How is Christopher James surviving on the seas?
I am such a social butterfly. I spend tens of minutes outside my room.
Really?
And no. I honestly, what I do is all of the business side of it. Yeah. So I go and I do all the boring stuff, the taxes and all, and I'm working on that. I watch lectures like crazy. Yeah. I love the Penguin lectures. Yeah. And so I watch all of those and reading constantly. Yeah. And just working on new material because I have to come back in March with a brand new act every year. Wow. So I'll sit on a ship and it's really difficult because, have you done ships?
I've been on ships, but I've never worked ships, no.
So communication is a little bit of a problem with the real world.
Oh, yeah.
And so
the internet's either way expensive or terrible or both.
Yeah. And so when I'm trying to come up with a new act, like I have to plan way ahead and figure it out where the problem. Right. And so I went onto a ship 2 years ago, knew what my act was going to be when I got back. I wanted to do something with cell phones. I was sick of people being on their cell phones. Right. And came up with an act and then scrapped the whole idea 2 weeks in and rewrote the whole thing. And so I'm on the ship sending messages to my wife. Hey, go find me an old fashioned, ringmaster coat. I need this. Yeah. And it was crazy because I had 2 days off between each cruise. So I had 2 days to work every few weeks and put together the act. So it was just nuts. So I work the whole time I'm on the ship. I actually worked probably harder on the ship.
It's similar to what Copperfield used to do when he would tour, because he would do a new full evening show every year. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard about what he would do with his semi trucks and stuff?
No.
So he would do 500. He still does them, but he's parked in one place now, in Vegas. But years ago, he would go on the road for 9-10 months at a time So there was no time to practice the next season's show.
Right.
So they would travel with 4 semi trucks. 2 would have all the gear for that show. 2 would have the gear for the next season. So they'd finish the show at like 10:30, 11 at night. He'd go sleep on the bus. Everybody would unload all the gear into one semi, unload the next season's worth of gear. They'd set it all up at like 3 a.m. He'd come back in. They'd practice all night long.
Right.
Then they'd load it up and they'd get in the bus and go to the next city and do that.
Crazy.
It's crazy. It sounds like your schedule though. But I mean, as far as with like rehearsing the next season when you're still in the current one.
Yeah. See, I'm so lucky to have this venue and to guaranteed an audience. I don't have to advertise. I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And so what I do is our technicians, I've had the same technicians for years, and they know that November and December is going to be crazy because I am going to test new material on stage. Yeah. So I'll find something I find that looks promising, and I'll start working it into the pre-show. So at the end of the game show, I'll say, well, here's a little something I thought I'd share with you.
Yep.
And then that ends up morphing into the 20-minute act later.
Okay.
And so whenever we get new technicians, my sound guy is like, this is just Christopher. He'll use the same background music. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
He'll try something. And I have a friend, people don't think about this. If you do cruise ships, right? I have a very good friend. He just worked in Branson. And he one time told me, he said, you're so lucky. You get to do 12 shows a week. On a cruise ship, if I want to put in new material, it is a process. I can put it in. Cruise directors don't want me to test something on a paying audience.
No.
He said to do something 12 times, I'm looking at 6 weeks to get to do 12 shows. He said, if you want to work something in, you get 1 week, and halfway through the week, you've done a month worth of performances that I would do.
Right.
And so by the end of 12 shows, it could be a completely different routine, and you've worked out the kinks.
Yep.
So he's always telling me I'm lucky. I'm like, you're lucky. You get to do, one night a week.
No, but it goes back to that repetition. I mean, that's why places like the Castle, anywhere you can work where you're doing 3 shows a night, and be able to put in something that, you wouldn't put something in brand new that you've never done before, but something that you're working on.
Right.
Man, by the end of the week, it's so tight and different. And because I get what your buddy saying. It's like when you have 1 show a week or 2 shows a week and you go, oh, I got to remember in a week from now to try that.
Yeah. You don't want to take 10 minutes of your 40-minute act or 50-minute act and try something new.
Right. But like here at the Castle, or when you're doing these shows in Branson, you can go, 30 minutes from now, I get to try this again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm guessing you get a lot of listeners that are mainly magicians or those imprisoned.
yes, mostly.
Can it be both?
Mostly magicians who are in prison. Which there's a lot to choose from, but
not a lot of escape artists.
No, not so many. You have a lot of entertainers, but then a lot of just people who enjoy entertainment in general.
Sure.
And
so to me, I haven't been to the Castle in almost 10 years. This is the first time in 10 years because of this schedule.
Yeah.
So when I found out I was going to perform, especially on Founders Day, right. So all of the big magicians are coming to the Castle, right. This day, I thought, I have got to put in like the most technical things I can possibly put in the show.
Yeah.
I need to impress them. And so I worked a month to put in some new material. And then I get here and it is just a ton of everyday people here to have a good time with a few magicians in the audience. Right. So I had that major misconception of what was going on and stuff. And I also had that when I went to Branson. In Branson, I thought I need to be at the top of the game. I need to do something that's just going to floor them. And of course you want to do that.
Right.
But mainly the people they want something visual, something fast, keep their attention. You have so much to compete with. When you went to Branson, what was your experience? Like, did you have to make any adjustments to your act?
Yeah, like one thing that I had to adjust, I didn't realize Branson audiences, there's generally a music bed behind the performer most of the show, I would say. Is that true? I mean, that was one of the notes that I got, was that to put more of like a music pad behind like a longer talking piece, or when you have someone on stage.
You got to keep their attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And people in Branson have seen shows. Most of the time, especially for corporate audiences, you may do a show and half the people in the room have never seen a magician in person.
Right.
But in Branson,
Yeah.
These people have seen shows.
Well, and the venue you were at
Yeah.
versus mine, we don't have season passes at the venue I have. So, and we're the most expensive venue in Branson. So we typically get somebody that visits once every other year, right? Okay. But you were at a venue where those people have season passes. Yeah. So they're there all the time. So you might get the same people in the audience over and over and over.
I did have several people who came up and were like, we were here on Tuesday and we brought our friends to come on Friday. I was like, wow, that's a whole different ballgame. That's just a different world. Yeah.
But we're spoiled because as a local, what people don't realize is Branson gets, I think, 7.5 million visitors a year.
Yeah.
Right. But we only have 10,000 people that live there. That's it. And and so the locals, we get a discount at all the shows, right? Or get comped in, all that sort of thing. And so they see a ton of shows. So when we have area appreciation weeks, so people can just come in, check out the shows. Those are the worst audiences.
Oh, really?
Because they've seen everything.
Yeah. Well, cruise audiences are similar generally. I mean, certain cruise lines, like people that go on cruises, and so they've seen a lot of different acts.
Right. And you get a lot of people from the coast. So they're used to seeing entertainment.
That's true.
I get people all the time at our venue that'll say, this is not only my first magic show I've ever seen, but this is the first live show I've ever seen. And they're in like their 50s. I'm like, really? Yeah. That's so weird to me.
That's crazy, man.
It's crazy. But like you're saying, Branson, when I first went there, the big act was going to be a confabulation routine, and I had it all figured out and all this, and it went really well. And then my producer's like, what do you have that's more visual? Can you make a bowling ball fall out?
Right.
Can you, and it was, we love the routine, but you got to keep it quick. They want fast routines.
Which is interesting because I've done a lot of things in the Midwest and in the South, and I always felt like that's a slower paced way of life. Mm-hmm. But with Branson, I was shocked at how much they want visual, quick movement, go kind of thing.
Yeah, and you saw that in the act I was doing at the castle. That there is something happening every few seconds.
Right.
See, one of the lucky things is I get a video of every single show I've ever done. So I have a video and an audio of every show. So I review them this is how obsessed I am. It's a sad life.
I want to hear all about it.
Is that on the way home, there is a scenic area where people can stop and take photos and all that of Branson.
Okay.
And I pull over every night and listen to the audio of the
whole show?
Of just my 20-minute feature.
Yeah.
Because I can't stand the whole thing. I mean, it would drive me crazy. Because I'm on a boat. Like, we work on a boat.
Right.
So it is a 4-hour experience for one show.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't get that. Like, that drives them crazy when they come and work the venue, is they think, oh, it's we can come in 10 minutes before the show, leave 10 minutes. Oh, no, you're on there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I listen to my 20-minute set, and then we keep notes as to where there's lulls and all that stuff. And so the act that you saw came from working in Branson, is that there has to be something happening all the time. So you were talking about things happening in the background.
Yeah.
That's purely to keep the people's attention that might not be into the magic. And so, and I even say in my new intro here at the castle, I say I have everything from the silly to the cerebral. So, because there's certain jokes that like 2 people get, and those are my favorite jokes to do.
Right.
In the audience, I love to see them get just a weird reference. Or something. So
every night you pull over and listen to your set.
Yeah.
And then make adjustments.
Yeah. If needed. But
do you catalog those videos? Like, do you still have copies, or do you
every single one? Mm-hmm. And then it used to be I got the DVDs.
Yeah.
Right. And so I write on them with the names of the volunteers. I had a preacher in this show. I had this, or any new line, because a lot of lines from my show truly come from the people just saying the most outrageous thing.
Right.
And that happens to a lot of people. And so, I have stacks of DVDs, and then we save every single one. I have an entire closet full of them.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone. Do you go back to them frequently, or?
No. If I find, oh man, this is making me sound so sad.
This is great. This is an insight into the brain of an artist.
Yeah, an artist. Very nice. But what I do is I save the DVDs, and I make notes in a little notebook when I pull over there, when I listen to the audio.
Yeah.
And so then I use Evernote. Okay. I don't know if you use that.
Yeah.
And so I can type in, if I get an outside gig working, look, I got asked to do a convention for pastors.
Okay.
All right. In the Branson area. So I pulled up like the 10 shows I had done over the last year and a half that had a pastor on stage. And then I watched those to see any jokes and stuff that we had done. And then I just made notes, and there you go. Then I got to put together that little special show. So Evernote is great. Everybody should use that.
To people who aren't doing this every day, that sounds very unique. Right? Yeah. But to me, that's so smart, because I started only a couple years ago writing down my sets for every show, which beforehand I tend to improvise a lot. So I'll have, here's what I think I'm going to do when I walk on stage.
Yeah.
But then if somebody comes up and they're really fun and quirky and we're having fun, I'll abandon whatever I had planned to go after whatever's happening in the moment.
Right.
I finally started taking notes on that. And I had to, because I would go back to corporate events or to different places, and certain places would say, we'd love to have you back, but this group just saw you 2 months ago. Can you do some new things? And if I don't write down after the show what I actually did, not just what I planned to do,
right,
then I'm in a pickle, man. So
yeah. And see that really, if you saw my set list, okay. Like, for example, when I go on a cruise ship, my crew on our daily show know me very, very well.
Yeah.
They know, we were talking about music. I have certain tracks that are just generic that I can play in the background. They know no matter what I pull out of the pocket or off the table, just play that.
Yeah.
Right? They know just to go with it. They know where it's going to go. On a cruise ship, I show up and the set list, you typically do like 40 to 50 minutes on a cruise ship. And I usually do like 4 routines, right? Yeah. That's it. And so
in 50 minutes.
Yeah. Because it's all interactive, right?
Right.
And so when they look at the set list, I have, here's routine number 1, and there'll be 3 here's routine 1, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Here's the 3 things I'm going to pick from. Here's 2, A, B, and C. And so it kind of confuses the technicians, because they're like, well, which one are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know until the lady gets up there, until the guy gets up there, and I see what they do, if they respond. I have a little test that I do with different people to see what their personalities are. And I say, just play the music. And I said, my cue is really simple. I'll say, let's get some music. And they start playing the music. Yeah. And I'm like, just go with it. Then we'll move on to the block number 2. Then we move on to block 3.
Yeah.
And so
they're so uncomfortable with this free flow.
Yeah. And then they're like, all right, you want to run through the show? I'm like, no, we're done. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I will ask
why
for music.
Practice what I don't know if that's going to happen?
I don't. I can't. Yeah. That is the nice thing about the show in Branson, is that one of the things I've negotiated is I don't go to rehearsals until like the day before we open or 2 days before, because I don't know how the show is going to go until I use the audience. So they just know, they just give me 20 minutes. The first year it freaked them out. And then after that, they're like, okay, if you look at the call sheet, you look, it just says Christopher will do something for 2 minutes. Christopher will do something for 5 minutes here. And they don't have a clue. And,
oh my goodness.
And so as long as I cover the time, as long as I keep it clean, they trust me now.
Okay. So here's something I want to know about.
Let's do it.
You're changing your material twice a year. By now you have to have so much possible routines to draw from.
Right.
How are you cataloging or keeping track of the different pieces you could do or routines that you did 3 or 4 or 5 years ago that you're not doing right now, but could if you need to? Do you have a system for that?
I do. Surprise.
I knew you had a system for it.
A system for everything. When I moved to Branson.
No, this is good, man. This is a selfish question, because I, the other day, was sitting there going, okay, what can I do new for these guys? And I went, and then I thought, I have this like 7 to 8 minute routine that kills, that I haven't done in 4 years, that I completely forgot I could do.
And so it really is a library of material. What I did is, space at my venue is very limited. We get illusionists that want to come in all the time. They want to bring in all their furniture, right? I call them furniture movers, but they want to bring it in. And I literally have a 3 foot by 3 foot space to store everything. Everything has to fit in this space. So typically what I do is I put together a show that fits in a little case that sits on a table. Boom. That's the 3 foot by 3 foot area, right? When I'm done for the year, I take that case, I put notes in there, I label it, maybe stick a notebook in of my work and stuff because I save everything coming up with the show, the concept, everything in a little notebook. Stick it in there. If you go to my house, to my studio, it looks like I have this big bookshelf. And it's just those. I just buy a new case every year and I just stick it up there and it's labeled on the side. So when I need to put together a show and somebody says we need 30 minutes, I look at it and this one's 8 minutes, this one's 12 minutes. And I just pull them out like books and just line them up and then figure out a way to make them all go together. So everything is self-contained.
Yeah.
Everything is like the act for the castle. The other performer that's here with me, he was kind of amazed because I just pick up the whole act and it all folds up into a little thing and I've got it there and I can carry it with me anywhere.
Wow.
So it's all self-contained. Even if I use the same props for a different routine, I rebuy them so that I have it and I'm ready to go. And it's just like a library of material. And the joke is, if you come to the house, I have 2 special cases that are at the very top of the bookcase that I have. And those are the 2 acts that I wrote leading up to coming to Branson.
Okay.
And I've never done them yet because I got here and it was completely different than I thought it was going to be. And so I still have in the repertoire those 2 and I've never done them yet. Those are my backups if I can't come up with something. And so they're just ready to go. So,
dude, my mind is blown right now. First of all, creative people sometimes get this bad rap of not being good with logistics or details or travel or things like that. You are so lined up, man, with everything. It's brilliant.
It's not that I like being like that. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
And our show is, if you think cruise ships are, a lot of people, when I started doing cruises, they were like, you got to be down to the minute. The cruise director wants to know exactly when you're going to end. You can't go over.
Right.
But our venue is so scheduled because we have three cruises a day.
You have to get people on and off and dock and all that.
It's really funny because I know at 53 minutes after the hour, I need to be dressed and ready. At 54, they're going to start playing the intro. At 55, the intros and the safety warnings are done. I go out at 1 minute after, they're going to bring sounds out. I got it all scheduled down to the minute after all these years. So when something happens and the schedule's off, or we have a holiday off, I am a nervous wreck at 53 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, I should be getting ready. The other thing is that surprises everybody is that I am notorious for showing up at the very last minute. Like I come in dressed, all I have to do is put on my mic and step out on stage. So 53, I have to be standing backstage.
Right.
But I walk through the door at 50 every single day.
Well, see, and that sounds last minute unless people know you because you know you're going to be there at that exact moment.
Oh, I know.
Have you ever had something happen where you get stuck or there's car trouble and you don't make it or like what?
We had one of my first years. I don't know whether this was, whether I should feel good or bad about this. But my entire cast and all the technicians thought that I had had a terrible accident. I'm a pilot.
Yeah.
Right? I love to fly. I love it.
Oh, in your spare time.
In my spare time.
Airplanes.
No, you know why I got my pilot's license?
Why?
I was doing so many shows at colleges. That was the big thing. I was doing colleges that I thought I can get there faster and I can do more shows if I get my pilot's license. Because in Ohio, there's like flight schools near every college.
Right.
So I took and worked like mad. Most people go to flight school like an hour a week.
Yeah.
I was doing 6 hours a day to try to get through it.
Just to get it done.
It took me 40 days to get my pilot's license.
Oh my goodness.
And so I did that. I got a plane, right?
Yeah.
And so I moved to Branson. I would go flying and I found it very relaxing, you know, to go up and fly. Well, there was an accident with a plane in Branson.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they all just assumed it was me, I guess. And it happened to be a day when I was getting there a little late. Yeah. And so I come walking up the steps and they're having a meeting. We were just discussing this. They're having a meeting about how to carry on the show without me there. And I'm like, oh, hi, how you guys doing? And they turned around and they were like ecstatic. And so I didn't know how to feel about that.
They thought you had gone down on a plane.
They weren't sure. They hadn't heard from me and I hadn't checked in.
Yeah.
I was running a little bit behind that day and that was they're like, you were 2 minutes late. Like you're never late. Like you're never late.
Well, the show must go on. But guys, can we
I'm like, you weren't
moment
even
of silence, maybe?
You weren't even going to cancel the show. Like they weren't going to cancel it.
Look, salads land at 1 minute after. We better.
Yeah. I feel bad because we have two different casts at our show.
Okay.
And they struggle sometime to find somebody for the other cast.
Yeah.
And the reason is is okay, here's a big secret.
Well, the two different casts, is these different seasons or different?
No, during the day, we do 3 shows a day.
Okay.
And so we kind of rotate with another cast, so we don't have to be there for 12 hours a day.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
So we have another venue. Here's the secret.
The secret.
This is how it's worked. All right. I'm letting people in on this. All right. The only reason I've had success is my first year.
Yeah.
All I had to do was that feature 20-minute spot.
Okay.
So I didn't have any pre-show. I didn't have any MCing. I showed up.
Yeah.
I did the 20-minute spot. I spent a year figuring out what audiences liked in Branson.
Right.
And working on it and changing my act. That first year, I changed my act every week. I was nuts about it. I wanted to get it right. Every week I had a rehearsal on Sunday to get ready for the next week. So then the second year, the MC in the show decided to leave. So they called me and said, he recommended you. He thought you'd be good at this. I'm like, I don't want to MC a show. Like, why would I want to do that? I have to work more. We'll pay you more. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can work it. I turned it down 3 times. Right. Okay. And they're like, just give it a try. And I'm like, I will do it if I don't have to directly interact with the audience. Like if I can just go out and I don't have to, because they were doing a question and answer segment. Like you could ask any question you want about Branson and the MC would answer in the pre-show.
That's no pressure.
I thought, I don't know Branson. I don't want to do this.
Right.
And so I said, I'll do it if I can just go out and do the speeches and then concentrate on my act. So within a week, I'm taking questions from the audience, right? And just making up ridiculous answers. And it became funnier and funnier and funnier. And so what that meant was the first year I built my act. The second year I learned how to really MC, and they were nice enough to let me continue doing that same act for half the season. So I didn't have to worry about that. So I concentrate on the MC. Yeah. So by the third year, I'm combining the two. So now they're getting guys and they're like, well, we want you to be in the other cast and you have to be able to MC, interact with the audience. You got to do it all. And do you know many performers that usually magicians are used to showing up and doing their thing. And there is a huge difference, to people out there that MCing versus MCing your own show. Right. If you're MCing your own material, it's different than having to introduce acrobats and, have a thread running through the show. And so they were doomed. We went through other entertainers like crazy for years. But I had on-the-job training, so that's how it worked out.
Oh my goodness, man! Yeah. Has there ever been a point where you've thought, I don't know if I want to keep doing magic?
About 5 minutes ago. No.
You're like, I was listening to the audio from my third show last night at the castle.
Right. There are some shows where I challenge myself to do mainly stand-up. Yeah. Like especially on cruise ships, because typically you do 2 different venues on a cruise ship. You do the main show, and then they have you in a smaller one.
Right. It's like a lounge.
A lounge. Yeah. And so lots of times I treat that like a comedy club. Okay. And I used to do comedy clubs, great comedy club that was in the Ohio area there that I worked at. Yeah. And the guy that hired me loved it. He's like, you walk on stage with a rope in your hand. Yeah. And you never finish the trick. Like,
that's great.
Like you're talking, you get distracted by somebody. I spent a whole show rearranging the audience. I'm like, no, you need to sit over here. No, we need to break up this little area over here. And just talking with the people and stuff. Yeah. And at the end, you started the rope trick and you went, wait, what's that? Oh, I'm out of time. Thank you guys. Oh, and I just walked off stage.
That's funny.
And so I have done like just straight stand up. Yeah. But I prefer to work it in to the magic.
But never once have you been like at any point where you're like, I'm just so tired of this.
Yeah. But it's not usually, magic has never let me down, right? Like I can always depend on getting people to have a good time by doing the magic. Right. Magicians let me down all the time.
Oh yeah.
Because the one criticism I would have of Branson is that they have no problem duplicating shows, Oh. So, I'm talking about.
They'll just bring someone in and say, learn this act.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I have had people tell me point blank, do you know anybody that can do your act? Because we want them to work in our venue. Wow. And I had an entertainer come to Branson and I try, I love entertainers. I just hate bad entertainers, right? And so I love talking with them. I've interviewed hundreds of them on the show, but I had one that I was really excited to work with. And I said, so what are you going to do in your act when you open up next week? Well, I'm going to do this. And then he listed 3 or 4 things. I go, oh, those were all in my act over the last few years. He goes, oh, I know. I watched your videos. And I figured you weren't doing that anymore. And I go, oh, no, that's not how this works. He goes, but I'm in a different venue and you're not doing it anymore.
Oh my goodness.
And so I get that a lot.
Yeah.
I get that a lot.
That's a common thing in Branson?
In Branson, the very first week, I got warned. They said, you're doing a lot of material we've never seen. And that was the secret, is I never went and watched the other Branson shows until I had been there for a few months. I didn't want to be that Branson style. And they said, we love that you're doing original stuff. Just expect it to be in other shows. Like, I just got warned by other performers.
Wow.
And there are a few entertainers that are kind of known for that. And they get hired all the time in Branson. And everyone says, well, the audiences love them. And I say, of course they do. They're doing
other
this person's bit.
Right.
They're doing this person. They're doing a Carlin bit. They're doing, Steve Martin. They're doing like the best of everybody. Right. And they don't even hide it. Like, they just have no shame. Mm-hmm. They think it's okay. And I had a producer. I went and complained to somebody one time. Yeah. And I said, I don't appreciate that in your venue, you're letting somebody do this routine that I based upon an incident in my life. Right. I had a bad accident and was paralyzed on my left side. And so I did a bit in the show where I talk about that and demonstrate how I had to work through physical therapy, whatever. And this guy was doing it, and he
telling the story like it happened to him.
Story, yeah.
Oh, that drives me crazy.
And he was talking about raising kids, and he didn't even have any kids. And I said to the producer, he's doing this bit, and he goes, "Well, come on." He goes, "It's just jokes. Once you tell it," and his belief was, once you tell a joke, it's out there, and people repeat jokes all the time. You can't control that. And this was a producer that was putting together shows. He's not doing it anymore, but he was putting together shows, and he had no problem. And I asked him, I said, if somebody comes up with a song and it's an original song and they start doing that at other venues, is that okay? And he's like, well, that's music. That's different. And so I think that magic and comedy doesn't get that respect. No. People just think they can just repeat things. And I try really, really hard not to go see a lot of other shows because I don't want to accidentally have a moment. Right. Have you ever had
something in your subconscious?
Yeah.
Oh, I've had moments where I thought, man, I just came up with the greatest bit. And then I found out that it was someone else's somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or somebody says something in the show and I've started to say a line and then been like, uh-oh. No, I've heard that before, and I catch myself.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And so I've accidentally done that.
Yep.
But, people come to the show here and I'll tell them point blank, this act is based upon this performer and he sold, the act, how it is. And I took it and revamped it for my personality and all of that. But yeah, there are people. That is probably the criticism I have. And I've never got tired of doing magic, but I've got tired of performers. Right.
Well, and that's what happens with magic. We talked earlier about commercial effects that someone will create an effect, a trick. The rope gets cut and it goes back together.
Right.
And they will sell the secret to doing that trick. And what happens, and it's happened to me, is I'll buy that trick. I'll write all original jokes. I'll put original story in there. And then on more than one occasion have had somebody who goes, oh, I bought that trick. And they're doing my jokes and my story.
Right.
And you just go, man, you guys don't get it. It's not.
No.
You're missing the part that the creation of it is the best part.
Yes.
I mean,
and I had a major argument with somebody that just doesn't get it. Okay. Yeah. He had come to my show one of the first years and I had bought several gimmicks, several routines. So I had ABC in the show.
Okay.
Right. But I had my own presentation to them. So ABC, I'm doing these three. And then he went to a magic competition, did the competition doing A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Right. 3 things in a row. And I said, I contacted him. I'm like, you did my set list.
Right.
Well, they're commercial effects. I just bought them. And he's like, anybody can buy these 3 things. And I go, yes, but the presentation, the reason that I went from A to B to C.
Right. The combination of those became an original
thing. And he did not see it. And he won all these awards. And it was very disheartening to me. That was when I just started getting so tired of it. I stopped doing magic conventions. I performed at a convention once.
Yeah.
With a really weird comedy, avant-garde thing that I was doing. And a guy came up and he's like, at the convention, he goes, so where'd you buy that? And I said, no, I came up with that. Like, that's my whole idea. I had a weird dream.
Right.
And I wrote it down. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I wake up, don't have any idea what I wrote down. And he's like, well, where did you get the props? And I said, well, I made them.
Yeah.
And a lot of time at Michael's, a lot of glue guns.
A lot of glue guns.
And he's like, well, where can I buy them? And I said, no, you don't understand. I made them. He goes,
Right.
well, you can either tell me where you got them or I'm just going to have to make them myself. And that was the last magic convention I ever did.
See, magic, even in comedy, once you're in the community of comedians, that does not happen.
Right.
Comedians won't put up with that. They won't. They know who's written what jokes and they know what belongs to who, and they will call you on it and you won't work anymore. But magicians, I think because magic is so associated as a hobby as well as a profession, people who make their living as a dentist don't care if on Friday night they go and do Michael Finney's act at,
Exactly.
the local club or whatever.
But if you're making your living at it, I try to explain to people, it's basically like you walked in and stole something from me.
Oh, yeah.
And, okay, now we're getting all serious.
I know,
didn't expect this sitting on these. I feel like I'm at one of my many therapists.
This plush couch.
Yes, exactly. But I have a reputation of not... not putting up with that.
Yeah.
And I'll call people out. Like I'll call them out right to their faces if they do that at a show in Branson. Cause I'm like, you're taking material and you're down the street from me. It's not like you're performing it in Pigeon Forge or Atlantic City or Reno or something. You're down the street from me. You're right here. And I explained just what you said.
Right.
If you did that, if I went to Vegas and started doing somebody's act word for word, like you would get called out immediately on that.
Right.
But they just tolerate it. And it drives me insane that people don't get it, because here's what I say. I am a bit of a workaholic.
Yeah.
Right. I have an older daughter. She's 18.
Yeah.
Right. I gave up so many years of being there on Christmas Eve, of being there for certain special occasions, because I was on the road.
Right.
I always say that somebody's vacation is my work day, know?
Oh, yeah.
And so when do we perform? We perform at special events. So I gave that up. So you took the routine that I spent 3 years coming up with, missing my daughter's school functions, so that you were lazy about it. You stole that time from me.
Right.
You just took that time. And so I have zero patience for it.
Yeah, man.
Zero. And again, I have some stuff in my show that I've bought.
Right.
But I've paid for it,
Right.
And, lots of times I work directly. Cody Fisher is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we talk. And so every once in a while he'll send me a routine and I'll work it the whole year and then send him the video and stuff. And he is one of the most encouraging guys ever.
Yeah.
And so I love working with him. And I have some other performers that'll say, hey, we know you work a lot. Will you try this out? And so I'll try it out. And then it ends up in their lecture notes or their notes for that trick or whatever.
Right.
And I love doing that. I love doing that. But
collaboration is different than just, I saw that, so I'm going to do it.
Exactly.
And the danger is you've worked very hard to be original, so that when people come to see your show, they're going to see things they haven't seen before. But if they choose to go down the street and see the guy who stole it from you before they go to see your show, now you look like a hack.
Yeah. And that's what I say.
Yeah.
Is I have a few things that I do and somebody will come to me. I have a character that I do.
Yeah.
And some other things that I do. I have a character that's trademarked.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have people every once in a while that will do that character. And so, I kind of let it, my lawyer told me wait until they're successful. And then
There you go.
So there's a major character that I do and we're just watching somebody. And if they get their break, well then cha-ching.
Yeah.
But cause I own the trademarks to it. But, but the danger of that.
Yeah.
As you were just saying, the danger is that they're going to get a break somewhere. Right. They're going to come to the Magic Castle, let's say someday, and do a little spot. I won't know about it. And then I show up and do my act that they're basing that on. And Jack or whoever at the castle comes up to you and says, well, that so-and-so has been doing that act.
Right.
And then you look like the hack. Right. Or they get a little break on YouTube.
Yeah.
And everybody sees it. And then you go on one of these reality shows, which I can't stand, right? Yeah. America's Got Talent or something.
Right.
And there you are. And then everybody's like, well, this guy's been doing it on YouTube for 3 years.
Yeah.
And so that's the danger of social media now, especially.
Right. Yeah. I've been having a conversation with a friend of mine where we go, should we put our acts out online? Should we not? Because as a performer, all people know of you as a performer is what they see. So you want to share your act and you want to put it out there for people to see.
Right.
But then there's the temptation that the minute you do something original online, every weekend warrior and every professional that doesn't have morals is just going to steal it.
Well, I'll give you a great example is one routine that you see in a lot of comedy magic shows now is Sean Farquhar's is it Farquhar? Am I saying that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is his book, his Sherlock Holmes routine.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right, totally.
And so I got that way back when it first came out, and I could not figure out how to end this, right? If you know the routine, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I just couldn't figure out how to make it fit my personality.
Yeah.
And so I came up with an ending. Actually, the very first week, surprise, surprise, you know, after a dozen shows. But I came up with an ending that I thought made the person on stage look like the star rather than make them look foolish for not noticing what's going on.
Right.
That was the problem I had. And so I came up with the ending. In fact, Sean ended up sharing the link to the video because I was really proud of this. I put it online. He shared the link and I was very proud that he did that. And he's a nice guy. He's an incredible guy. I've talked to him.
Great.
And it's a great routine. And so within a few weeks,
you start seeing all these other
I started
videos.
seeing people do this ending to it.
Yeah.
And the ending, I'll tell you, because I've taken down the video, but I'll tell you the ending later. But it is so unique to my character and stuff and what I do that I'm like, what in the world? Like it was word for word.
Right.
And it wasn't something he included with this, with his notes and stuff. And I'm like, you obviously watched my video.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just driving me crazy.
Yeah.
And so, what you're saying is I used to love putting things on YouTube. Now what I do is I don't put my current act on. I wait at least until the year is over.
That's good.
And I'll put the current act in. But my show is so character driven now.
Right.
That I have people in my show that say, you don't need to worry anymore. You've developed this character. The character on stage is a guy that grew up only doing magic. That's the only thing the only way I can communicate with people. Yeah. And I'm so awkward about it. and the magic just happens and I'm trying to have like a serious conversation and things are coming out of my pockets and like I'm trying to talk to somebody and this appears and that appears and I just want to connect with somebody. Yeah. And I even begin the show by saying, I'm fifth generation. All I've ever known is magic. I've been doing magic since whatever. Yeah. This is all I know. I'm really book smart about women. Yeah. But,
book smart about women.
And so we do the whole act and it's completely different than me off stage. Yeah. Off stage, I'm obsessive with everything that's going on. But on stage, a recent article, the guy said it's like controlled chaos. Like you get people up, it looks like chaos. Yep. And so I get people with the act that you watch that will come up to me all the time and say, your act was great because you had two people up there that were fantastic. What they don't realize is that I've done it 400 times, not more.
You made them fantastic.
Yeah, I am using like some subtle cues with hands and body language, whatever, to make that act work. Yeah. And so it's just learning from years and years of experience. So that's what I tell people. That's the biggest advice I give people is just do as many shows as possible.
So good, man.
Just get out there, start working.
Dude, that's awesome. I have much other things that I want to talk to you off the podcast on now. Oh, yeah. But dude, how can people see what you're doing? How can they follow along? How can they check out some of this other content that you've got available?
Well, I've started doing a lot on Instagram. Yeah. So, because we're way behind in Branson.
Yeah. I got a Zynga account and a MySpace page.
Yeah, MySpace and Friendster are really big. You know how it is when it's noon in New York City. It's 1974 in Branson.
We should do rapid fire Branson. You just give rapid fire Branson jokes.
Yeah. I do that. I do the jokes in Branson, then I say, well, when I'm not in Branson, the jokes are a little different. I don't want to be condescending. It's just that you don't understand what some of the jokes mean. No, I love Branson, and we joke about ourselves all the time. But anyway, Instagram, I'm doing that. But pretty much you can find me at Funny Hyper Magic.
Awesome.
And, I used to do the news all the time. I used to do this Monday Morning Magic on our local news. Yeah. And so they kind of gave me that name because I would show up at like 5 a.m. ready to go.
Just be all wired.
And they're like, Funny Hyper. And so Funny Hyper Magic, you can find me about everything.
That's awesome.
And so I love to talk with magicians. Yeah. I love to work on projects. I do consulting in Branson for other performers. This is my favorite thing.
Oh, very cool.
Is I write for other comedians and shows that have a completely different hillbilly style or a different family style, whatever. And I love those outlets to do all that. Man. So, yeah.
So good. Well, I will put, if you guys are listening right now, click on the wonderful photo that we have there. We should take a photo. We'll take a photo. We'll take a photo. You'll see the photo. You click on it. It'll flip around. And I'll put direct links there to all of Chris's stuff so you can follow along. Such a great combo with Christopher James. Man, that guy and his work ethic is intense. I think my schedule's busy until I talk with Christopher, and then I was like, dude, I'm not doing anything. Such a good conversation. So many great things there to pull from. And I'd encourage you, I said this at the beginning of the show, but take care of yourself this season. If it's busy, great. Take care of yourself. If it's slow, great. Take care of yourself. The world needs you, and they need your art. So keep pushing through. The last thing that I want to say next week is the 100th episode. I can't believe it. Episode 100. Once again, if you'd like to include something from the other episodes that you enjoyed, we're doing like a best of. So give us a call on the hotline there on the break line. You can get that in the show notes here, or you can go to abouttobreakpodcast.com, leave us a message, let us know one of your favorite episodes, and I will be sure to include your thoughts in episode 100. All right, gang, have a great week. We'll see you soon.